So there's 3 separate and sequential stages to the General Adaptation Syndrome model. So this is the model that Hans Selye helped develop. And unlike the trans-theoretical model for behavior change, where you have, pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance, and you can freely go between the stages, this one is sequential. So you start in one. If the stress continues, you go to the next stage. If it continues, you go to the next stage. You don't go back and forth with this particular model. Let's talk about it. Let's dive in. So stage 1, or phase 1, is called the alarm phase. That's what it's called. This phase it goes hand in hand with your body's fight or flight response. Has anybody ever heard of the fight or flight response before? You might have heard of it. You may know a little bit about it. So your body's fight or flight response, this is a reaction that occurs whenever we are faced with a perceived threat. Something that is potentially threatening to our body, mind, soul, and divinity, essentially. Threat to survival is probably the biggest piece right here. And as a result, it prepares our body for physical activity by redirecting blood flow. One of the best ways I like to think about the fight or flight response is you're faced with a threat. So let's just say a bear shows up at the door. You've got 2 choices. Let's assume there was maybe an exit over here. We'll assume that. You have 2 choices. You can either get ready to fight this bear, or get a weapon or a chair to try to fight it, or you're going to put on your running shoes and try to get the heck out of there. That's what we mean by fight or flight. Fight means you are going to try to confront it head on, confront the threat. Flight is get out. That's what it means. And by redirecting blood flow to your muscles, like your arms and your legs, that's going to make it easier for you to fight this thing or for you to run away. It's easier because more energy and more of your body's resources are going to those muscles. And then you have hormones released, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I do have a question in red there. Are there any other responses besides fight or flight that may be induced with stress? So you've heard of fight and flight. Is there another one maybe? Freeze. Yes. Or fidget. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All the F's. Yeah, freeze was the one I was thinking of. So freeze is another response to the alarm phase, and that's where an individual just goes completely stiff, essentially. Most of the time, the freeze response happens in extreme cases, like very, very extreme cases. However, that does come up with this particular phase from time to time. For the purpose of this class and wellness in general, we're going to be more interested in the fight and the flight, though, and you'll see why in just a moment. So I've said the word hormone at least a couple of times already, and some of you may be thinking, what is a hormone? A hormone is basically just a chemical messenger. So it's produced by one organ in your body or a gland in your body, and then that little chemical is sent to another part of your body to cause a change. So during the alarm phase, there's 2 hormones your body makes that are released into the body, and these may be a little bit familiar to some of you. So you've got norepinephrine and epinephrine. Has anybody ever heard of either of these 2 hormones before? Maybe, sort of. So norepinephrine has an effect. It helps dilate your blood vessels, so it makes your arteries and veins bigger to allow blood flow to pass through more easily. And epinephrine is going to mainly increase your heart rate. And all of that is in hopes of pumping blood to your arms and your legs to help you fight or flee from whatever stressful event that is happening. So those are the 2 big ones. Some of you may have heard of the term adrenaline, like my adrenaline's pumping. It's these 2 hormones that essentially are causing or are the root of that adrenaline that is to be pumping. Another fun fact, some of you may have or know somebody with an EpiPen, or you know what an EpiPen is. So if they have an allergic reaction, stab the thigh, might buy you a few hours before you get to the hospital. The epi in the EpiPen is short for epinephrine. So that's essentially what you're injecting to buy you some time. Fun fact. Okay, so we're still in this phase. Fight, flight, you're sweating, your heart rate's going, you're starting to breathe a little bit heavier. Those are all things, again, geared towards helping you fight or flee from whatever threat, real or perceived, that you are encountering. However, you have a few other changes as well in this phase. You start to see a reduction in digestive function, so you're not able to process and digest food quite as easily. It's also a little bit more difficult to think clearly, logically, and to concentrate on multiple tasks at once. And as a result, decisions are made on impulse. Decisions are made on impulse. So what does that imply? So when you're in a state like this, where your heart is racing, you're sweating, you're breathing really heavy, all of those things are happening, and you're not really thinking super clearly and logically, and you're making a lot of impulsive decisions. What do you think that implies? When you're in this state, do you make a lot of good decisions? You are panicking. You're panicking, yeah. And so if you have to make a choice or a decision, I guess maybe I'll rephrase my question. How many times have we been in a state like this, and maybe your emotions are getting a little fired up, maybe you're feeling afraid or angry or really, really sad? How often do you make an impulsive decision and then you give it an hour or two and you look back on that and say, oh man, I really wish I didn't do that. Like I let myself get the better of me. How often has that happened? Happens more often than we like to think. Because most of your body's resources are going to pumping blood to your arms and your legs to help you fight or flee from the threat. That means less blood flow up here. And if there's less blood flow up here, it means you can't think as clearly. And therefore, decisions you make oftentimes are not made with logic and reason. They're made out of emotion and, lack of focus. So that's often one of the main reasons why, when you're really, really angry or hungry or experiencing a very, very strong emotion, or you're in this phase, it's best to try to avoid making big decisions and saying things to people. It's best to avoid it until you've gotten out of this phase, because chances are you're probably not thinking as clearly as you should. The stage typically doesn't last long, seconds to minutes. It's fairly short because there's only so much epinephrine and norepinephrine that your body's able to deliver before it runs out. Questions about that? All right, let's go to the next phase. So after alarm, once that phase has run its course and the stressor has not been addressed, you'll enter what's called the resistance phase. So the resistance phase, I like to sort of refer to as the bend but don't break phase. Bend but don't break. Anyone who's ever played sports, especially contact sports, the coach will sometimes tell you bend but don't break when you're facing your opponent. So this resistance phase is nice. Your body is able to maintain it for a certain period of time, but not for too long. Not for too long. So the main transition between the alarm phase and the resistance phase is, instead of releasing norepinephrine and epinephrine, your body starts releasing another hormone called cortisol. Anybody ever heard of cortisol before? Not cortisone. I had someone say, is that what you inject to your joints to make them feel better? No, it's not a cortisone shot. It is a hormone, cortisol. And cortisol is nice because your body produces it and releases it, and it helps keep your blood sugar levels on the higher side. Why do you think you'd want to have your blood sugar levels higher? What advantage do you think that might give to your body when you have higher blood sugar? Any sciencey people in here that may be able to help us out? Having temporary higher blood sugar levels, where might that be helpful? How? How does it help you manage the stress? What does it do? So remember, when you're feeling stressed, your body's putting measures into place to help you deal with this stressor. The innate way it likes to help you deal with it is by diverting blood flow to your extremities to help you try to fight this thing or to hide or get away from it. So by having higher blood sugar levels, that is going to give your body a readily available source of energy so that it is able to keeping you ready to fight or flee from whatever it is that is facing you during the stressful moment. And because of that, it causes you to consume more calories. So you may have heard the term stress eat before. Maybe some of you are like this, where when you're really, really stressed, you like to eat, especially really sugary, salty foods. So that is in part due to cortisol being released as your body's trying to keep blood sugar levels higher, so you always have energy available to try to combat this stressor. That's why. So the majority of your body's energy and resources is spent trying to address the stressor, address whatever it is that is causing you stress, and get your body back to sort of normal par for the course operation, which means much less of your body's energy is directed towards other functions, right? It's not just dealing with stress that your body is designed to do. Your body also needs to, fight off bacteria and viruses and other things that shouldn't be in there. It needs to digest food. It needs to metabolize. It needs to heal tissue. So many other things that your body needs to do. So if less energy and fewer of your body's resources are being directed towards these, what do you think might happen, or what does that imply? You're having fewer resources towards immune function. What do you think might happen then if you're in this phase for too long? Pass out? Not quite.
You get sick.
You're more likely to get sick. When your immune system is not given its regular or required amount of resource or attention, it can't do its job as well. It can't fight off pathogens, which are the bad guys that get into your body. It can't fight them off as well. So you're more likely to get sick. More likely to get tired. More likely to experience GI discomfort, stomach pains, indigestion, amongst a variety of other things. It's much more likely to happen when you're in the resistance phase. And as was mentioned in the previous slide, this phase can last anywhere from minutes to days, depending on the stressor and depending on how intense the stressor is. So if it's a relatively minor thing, this phase your body can maintain for a pretty long time. If it's something that's a little bit more intense, a little more major, maybe this phase will be shorter. And it can also last minutes because maybe you'll find a way to address the stressor or make the stressor go away. And then this phase stops and then your body returns to business as usual. But what happens if you're not able to address the stressor and eventually you start to run out of cortisol? Then what happens? You already mentioned it. You die? You don't die, no. You do burnout though. This is when you enter burnout. So at the beginning of class, everybody's felt burnout before, right? That is formally known as the exhaustion phase in the General Adaptation Syndrome model. And this takes over when basically all of the glands in your body that produce cortisol and all the other hormones that help keep this process in place are exhausted and they're out. They have a limit. And your body says, you know what, if you're not going to take a rest and you're not going to do something about this and shut off, for lack of a better term, I'm going to force you to do it. And your body eventually gives in. And then this phase lasts for, anywhere from hours to days until your body's able to get back and replenish some of those resources it lost. and then maybe the cycle repeats itself all over again. Now, entering the exhaustion phase of this response does not mean you're going to die necessarily. It does not mean you're going to get a serious health condition. Where the seriousness comes in, or where premature death comes in, is when you go through this cycle of alarm, resistance, exhaustion over and over and over and over again. Because when you do this and you enter this phase over and over and over again, eventually this is where you start to see this happen. You start to see your muscle waste away. You start to see much more fat or adipose tissue. Your immune system just isn't as good anymore. And then that's going to lead to other things which may contribute to, more severe or chronic health problems, and then potentially premature death. Entering exhaustion once in a while, not the end of the world. But when you're repeatedly getting to this point, that's when things could be problematic. And that is when you want to start to draw your attention to it. I don't remember this, but okay. Let's do a question. So remember, the key word here is exhaustion. There are 3 phases to the General Adaptation Syndrome model. What are the phases? What's the first one? Alarm. Second one, resistance. Third one is exhaustion. Rapid heart rate and sweating. You're probably not going to have much of that in exhaustion because you're completely burnt out and your body's exhausted its resources. Which stage or which phase is more likely going to yield rapid heart rate and sweating? Is it going to be alarm, resistance, alarm or resistance? Alarm. That's the one where you're going to see that. Muscle tension and alertness. You could argue that that is probably going to be present in both alarm and resistance. Exhaustion, again, you're pretty burnt out. You're not going to have much else. You're going to see the chronic pain and the frequent illness reign there. So when you're getting questions like that, really, really important to ensure that you read it closely, because that can have a big difference when answering it.